Good morning, friends. Happy day, whatever day it is you're watching. Today I want to make a rubber stamp. I think it's called lino cutting. I believe it's called lino cutting. But anyway, this is what we are going to make. Not exactly this one, but something very similar to this. So let's get started. First, I have a picture here. I like to make greeting cards, and when I do, I like to put this Hallmark on the back. Usually I say Cards by Kim down here on the bottom. However, I'm going to go for a little bit more simplicity today, and if I want to add that later, I can. I have a piece of Speedy Carve here, which I will take out of its little packaging. Alright, let's get that out of the way. And the first thing I need to do is I need to transfer this design onto this block. So I am going to take this design, I'm going to flip it over, and I'll line it up as best I can. I hope I'm not going off the edges. And I'm just going to rub like this, and I think it's going to transfer. Usually you use tracing paper and you trace whatever you're working on, but in this case I put it directly on here and I think it'll transferred pretty well. It's not perfect, but it transferred pretty well. This here is a carving tool. It has all of the gouges, as they are called, in the handle here, which makes that kind of nice. And to begin with, I want to go ahead, I want to put in, I'm going to lose this thing. I want to put in the smallest V-gouge. And that would be this one right here, is the smallest. And then I get to figure out, there we go. Okay. So, I'm just going to get started. And I think what I want to do, I haven't been doing this long enough to be really good at it, but I have been doing it long enough to know that I really do enjoy doing it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and that may be the wrong thing to do. A professional might tell me that that's a terrible idea. I don't know. So, as I said, I'm going to get started over here, and I'm going to start right here in this corner, and I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to follow this around. Now, what some people do, first of all, don't do what I'm doing. Don't put your hand right across from the blade. It's not a good idea. You're supposed to keep your hands behind the blade. That was my first, don't do that. But what a lot of people do is they do a light wash on top of their carving block so that they can better see where they've carved. And that's probably what I should have done here. But as with everything, I just jump in with both feet and go. So I'm just following this around. I'm not concerning myself with the fact that I'm probably going to lose a couple gouges here in the process, because I'm just going along about my business here. Hope I'm not going off camera. Taking this thing all kinds of directions here. Now, somebody that is a pro at this is probably out there screaming at me right now, and I'm sure I should be screamed at, but anyway. Okay. So, I'll go back over here. And I'm just going to start carving out this piece here, carving out this little section here. And you have to be careful when you're doing this sometimes, because sometimes you carve away a piece that you didn't want to carve away, and there is no putting back on tool. So you do have to be a little careful and a little patient with what you're doing here. Alright, I'm going to bring this back around and see if I can get this out of here this way. I think I got it where I wanted it, maybe. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with that, but this part right here is playing with me here. And I just want to get it out of there without wiping off any of my lines, which means I'm going to have to be really careful on the other side of that so that I make sure that I've got plenty of stuff here. I think swirls are a little difficult to do. But if you can get a good one, oh, it's so good. That went a little outside of where I wanted it to go, but I still think it can be fixed since I haven't done that outer line yet. It's these inner lines that I'm going to have to really watch and be super careful with, because what I don't want to do is mess those up, because if you mess up the inner lines, you're kind of game over. At least this outer line here, once I kind of see what I'm doing here. There's definitely a learning curve to this about how much pressure you want to use when you're doing it, and so I suggest starting simple. My first one, this one here, is a girl winking. This one was hard to do. You can see there's black lines here where I still should carve them out, and she kind of looks like a not a Yeti, a Wookiee, a little bit. She looks a little like Chewbacca's sister, maybe. I am not a professional at this, obviously. You know, out of all the crafts that I do, it's funny, the one thing that I could call myself pretty proficient at would be my card making. And it's funny because the one thing that I do pretty darn well, I haven't made a video on, which, you know. And I think for me, it's I enjoy trying these new things. And I want to keep trying new things because I enjoy it. Again, I'm not super upset about this outside line here because I haven't defined it completely yet. We're just going to have to see how the rest of this comes out and be very careful and mindful of what we're doing. What a lot of people will do is they'll put a wash on their block before they get started, and it helps them be able to see better where their carvings are. So I haven't tried that yet, and I probably should. Just be very careful. This is very sharp. It looks innocent. It's really not. Anytime you're working with cutting tools, you just want to be very careful and mindful. Don't let your kids get a hold of this one. One thing about this is it is a little bit of a messy project if you're into that sort of thing. And if you're not into that sort of thing, well, sorry, but it is messy. I think in some cases I just go a little too deep because I just want to get it done, but the reality is you don't want to do that. You want to just go low and slow, because you can always deepen your gouges later. But I think to start with, I don't think you want to go super deep. And again, I'm really not a perfectionist. I am okay when things don't go 100% the way I want them to. And I think some people have a hard time with that. I don't. I'm not, I know there are always going to be better people out there, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the talents of other people. And it's kind of fun to see like what your end product looks like. When you're done. I've seen some stunning lino cutting art. It's just amazing. And the whole block printing thing and all of that stuff. I don't know how much a block printer costs, but I think it's a machine, right? Like you put your blocks in it and they transfer really nicely. Now there are bigger gouges. There are much larger gouges that you can use, but for the super detailed stuff like this, I think you're better off just kind of sticking with the small V gouge. What's nice is once you start to get what you think you want, like this one turned out pretty wonky. Part of her lip is missing. That's, you know, this was my very first one. I should have picked something much more simple. But you can see where the dark spots are, so you can go through and carve those out and make it better. So that's why you have scrap paper on hand. That was actually taken off of a piece of art that I originally did, and it was in one of my photo albums, not photo albums, one of my sketchbooks. And I thought, ooh, I want to try that. And it was probably more advanced than I should have gone for my very first maiden voyage of carving a block. But like I said, I usually just jump in with both feet and just go. Not before, you know, giving it a little bit of a try first. I did try, you know, some little test patches. This is where it's going to get very tedious over here because this starts to really go down into a little spiral. I think as you start, you know, when you first start anything, obviously you might not be great at it. Keep trying. This one, my first one wasn't great, but I just kept trying, and it turns out I really enjoyed it. And so sometimes what I'll do, I'll just pack everything up, and I have one of those little lap desk things, and I'll just take everything up to my boyfriend's, and I'll sit on his couch and carve on my little desk. I try to be careful not to get a mess, you know, make a mess all over his couch, but it's not like it's liquid and going to cause damage if you do make a little bit of a mess. So it's really hard to tell where we're at here, other than I have some spaces that obviously need a little trimming. And if it's not perfect, I think it won't be too difficult to fix. I'll give a little bit of a line over here. At least get it kind of going where I can kind of see a little. Okay, I think that kind of helps right there. Okay, I'm going to do some of this off camera because I know that this is a very slow process, so I will come back when I have gotten a little more of this done. Alright, we are still plugging along here. We are carving around the little stems of the arrows. And I'm just doing a thin line right now because I'm going to go back and carve a lot more. But I'm just lightly, very lightly, going around this edge here. And I've already done the rest. You can kind of see a little bit of an outline there. But I think that this is probably the best way to go about it. But we are still plugging along. As you can see, there's still a lot of work to be done. What I want to do, so I want to get this, nice and defined over here. Because once these are nicely defined, then I can kind of go around the whole thing and scrape out, carve out around it. But I just want to make sure that this is, got a nice definition here. This is not a, this is not something that has a fast process to it, if I'm being honest. This is something that definitely takes some time. But you should literally, and I forget because I am new, but you should always have both hands behind this blade. You should never have the blade coming towards you. And that is something that, like I said, I need to, in this case, when I'm picking it up with my finger, I'm not using any pressure, and I'm recognizing that my hand is right there. But yeah, you should always have your fingers out of the way of the blade. So if this is something that you decide to try, I highly recommend. But also, you're going to have to really get used to, because you tend to want to, your hand wants to get in the way and help guide, and that is not what you want to do. These things are super sharp. You do not want to get stabbed. I don't want you to get stabbed. I don't want anybody to get hurt doing something like this. So just be mindful of what you're doing over here. Because you don't realize how far you're digging into the block, really. Yeah, this one's it's not going to be a perfect arrow. But again, and I have said it before, I am not a perfectionist. And since I'm fairly new to this, I give myself a lot of grace. I don't let comparison be the thief of joy to me. Can you imagine if you compared everything that you did to people that were better than you? I mean, you have to compare yourself to you and what you started off. You have a baseline, right? You know where you started off, and you know where you ended up, and that's pretty cool. So don't compare yourself to other people's work. Just enjoy the process. But this does have a long way to go, as you can see. And it's kind of fun. But really what I want to do is just kind of define these areas here before I start to carve out much more, because I want to carve out a lot of this, which you'll see. You will see when I get there. And like I said, just be mindful of where your hands are at all times in comparison to, or in relationship to the gouges, because you don't want to gouge a finger. That will hurt. And also just kind of take your time so you know where your lines are that you want to create, so that you're not, I mean, some of my lines are a little funny here, but that doesn't mean that I can't somewhat fix them. What you don't want to do is go back and gouge over these. You can gouge all the way around them, that's fine. You just don't want to take up more than what you've got here. You don't want to mess your design up too much, if that makes sense. Okay, we're slowly but surely getting there. Slowly being the operative word here. It is a very slow process. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to do some more of this off camera and we'll come back. Okay, here is some progress. And I think I'm going to move on to a little bit bigger gouge now, because I want to start really kind of scraping out some of the larger areas. There we go. So I've switched to a bigger gouge. Just make sure that it is in there and it's good. And I really don't know where to start on this. So I guess I'm just going to start, go kind of next to this and just start moving my gouge around. And like I said earlier, you really don't know much. I mean, you have an idea, but you really don't know a lot until you have kind of scraped out around, if that makes sense. And then once you have kind of scraped out around and done what you want to do, and you get this area scraped out, kind of like I have done here, then you can start putting ink down and figure out what you need to fix, what you need to finish. And I don't know the best way to do this. I just know that I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I think the best way to put on the ink is to use a brayer, but unfortunately I'm not sure where my brayer is. I just don't want to get the brayer that I have gross. And I think I only have 2 brayers, and the one that I would normally use for this is not, I'm not sure where it's at. Anyway, again, I'm going to go ahead and do some of this off camera, but I wanted to give you an idea where I was in my process. And we will come back in a few minutes. Okay, update. I can't find either one of my brayers now. So we're just going to have to see what we've got here. So I've got my scrap paper here. And I'm just going to take and lightly, because I know it's going to pick up just everything. As you can see, it's doing down there. That's not really what I'm wanting it to pick up. But that's okay, because where you see areas where it's picking up, those are areas that I can go back through very easily and see. Ooh, shoot. Oh no. Messy. Messy, messy, messy. Anyway, a brayer would make this a little bit easier, I think. I'm going to put that back on. We are going to take this and we will turn it this way. I think it'll be a little easier. And there are tools to help you do this. I'm new at this, so I don't have the tools. But I have seen where you can use like the back of a wooden spoon. Oh, that probably didn't do any good now, did it? So you have to make sure you're holding this down. So I'm sure I have a double image now. But anyway, there is what it turned out looking like. And I'm not hating on it. I see some spots here. But all in all, I'm decently happy with it by and large. I do want to go back in and fix some areas that I think need to be fixed. And then once I do that, we will come back on here and check it out. Okay, so you can see I have scraped off a lot of the black lines that were creating these lines here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch out my gouge and I'm going to go back to my small V-gouge here. Sometimes this is difficult to put in. Okay, so what I want to do, it's a messy process. But what I want to do is I want to kind of go around some of these areas that are pretty fine, some of these areas that I want to kind of fix and just make them a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to do. I just wanted to pop on real quick and show you the progress I have made. And it's a work in progress. But like I said, I'm going to use my small V-gouge to go in and just try and really tidy up some of these spots. So I will do that and I will be back with some progress. Okay, let's do this one more time. Here's what it looks like now. And I'm just going to press the ink on as I go down. And like I said, a brayer would be a much better option here. But since I can't find either one of mine, this is what we're going with. So, we're going to go in now. And we are going to pop this down like this. People use like the back of a spoon, like the back of a wooden spoon, to make this work. That's what a block press is for. Block press would be really good for this, but this is what we've got. So this is what we're doing, and this is now what it looks like. So if you remember, this was my original. It looks similar, not exact, but it does look similar. This is what it looked like the first time around, and this is what it looks like now. There's a little more cleanup that needs to be done on there, but if I'm being honest, I think the only thing I might clean up might be like this edge down here, because I don't dislike this, and I would use this on the back of my cards, absolutely. I can change the color of the ink, and so this was a pretty fun project. I think I am happily finished with this for now, other than maybe this edge down here, which is not completely making me angry, but I think I'm pretty happy with it. I just wanted to share with you the little pile of pink mess that I have over here. And then here is our finished project. Thank you so much for joining me today for this project. I appreciate your time. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you do, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me grow, and I really am trying to grow my little galaxy here. So if you would do that, I would be ever so grateful. I hope you have a great whatever time of day it is for you. And don't forget to release your inner artisan. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.